Welcome to Dancing Through It with your host, Leslie Cooney, the podcast where we share honest conversations about passion, perseverance, and the power of movement. My guest today is Tamara Thompson Levi. Every week I realize I say, I'm so excited for our guest today, but it's true. I will get a thesaurus. I will find something different to say that I'm very excited about this guest. But I feel very honored today. I'm happy to use that adjective. But today we have Tamara Thompson Levi, the megalith of dance education and Shine Dance Festival, and someone who I greatly admire. And if you are in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, I'm sure you know her name. I'm so grateful you're here with us today, Tamara.
I am honored to be here and delighted to get to have this conversation with you.
I keep joking because I keep getting folks that I know to start off, and I'm like, caveat, this is my best friend, or like, caveat, this is someone who's hired me. Caveat, I've known Tamara. Well, I think a lot of us have known you for a long time, and you're very personable, and you make us feel very valued and respected, like right off the bat from meeting you. And then that just sort of like, for myself, I can say it like draws me into you. And then there's like a very beautiful mutual respect that you offer, and that then it naturally comes back to you. That's just like your special sauce, I feel like. Does that resonate with you in terms of like when you meet people and how they maybe feel like gravitated towards you quickly?
Oh, this is interesting. I haven't heard anybody articulate that about me before. So I'm really just absorbing it as you're saying it and thinking also like, oh, like where does that come from? The psychology of it, where does that come from?
Right.
Obviously, I have learned that from people around me, but I think one thing that I've learned over time about myself, and again, I think this came partly from my family and just partly from the place and the environment I grew up in. Like when I think about the concept of inclusion, it's really not to me about seeing divisions and how do we bring certain groups of people into a thing. It's about really just seeing each individual and their value, full stop, and knowing that everybody has magic and special and something to contribute to everything. So I think that's kind of where I come at life from. And I credit, the people who are around me in my formative years for just showing me what that looks like.
Yeah, I will say it doesn't feel performative at all. I can really tell that is how you operate. Like, and it doesn't matter if you're dealing with folks you know quite well, or if you're dealing with like tech staff at a theater. Like I've sort of seen you in a handful of different leadership roles, and I'm like, oh no, this is just how this human operates. And it's admirable. And real talk, it really inspires me. I go, it makes me check in with myself, and I go, okay, like lock that away. Like that's how you like treat people. It's just, but it's obviously very much how you operate. So I did skip ahead because normally how I like to start is for my guests to talk a little bit about how, like, here we are sitting here today. What did the journey look like, or what were the, instrumental moments that created this version of Tamara right here in terms of dance, mostly?
Yeah, there's so many moments. I mean, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. So until I graduated high school and left, and, that has certainly shaped who I am in so many ways. And then I've also lived in a lot of different places. I've moved around a lot, both across Canada and internationally. And that has also had a huge impact and influence, on a lot of parts of who I am. Living in the Middle East, for example, really, I think, had a major impact on my personality. I was much more of a naive Canadian until that experience. And then, after feeling like I was just kind of, I just really realized I had to be bigger and stronger and advocate for myself in certain ways in order to survive and thrive in that kind of
Right.
world. So that's definitely something that's led me here, not just in dance, but in general. In dance, I mean, well, something that I think also is important. I'm 5 feet tall. I am very miniature. And so straight out of high school, I embarked, on this journey of like, I'm going to try to be a professional performer, dancer, singer, actor.
Right.
And that means shooting 360. That means being really open and being really willing, because I knew, of course, there were going to be limited opportunities for me in the professional world for that reason of both my height and then also my look. So yeah, that kind of created like an openness and a willingness, and it allowed me to explore different domains in performing, whereas I some people really have a clear direction or a clear path they want to follow. That was not me. I was willing to try and do everything. And I'm grateful because it really helped me see different sides of the industry and experience different kinds of contracts. Like truly my resume, it's like, I don't think I did the same thing twice.
Right.
I got to do a lot of different kinds of projects. So that was really beneficial.
Yeah. Was there there's this is where I'm really selfish and I'm just like, oh, like let me like pick apart. Like I'm like, I want to know all these things. What drew you so like you graduate high school and I don't know exactly what the timeline is for this, but in terms of moving internationally, especially to the Middle East, where I think the words that you used, which was like so beautiful, was like bigger, stronger, and having to advocate for yourself, which I like adore. And we're going to get into that and how that, again, this is just your MO. What prompted that move or that not even, I mean, it is a move, but like that's a whole life, that's a whole lifestyle switch, a whole decision of 180. What sparked that, if you don't mind sharing with us?
I don't mind sharing at all. So I had a contract on a cruise ship as a dancer where I met my now husband, and he is from the Middle East. And
Oh,
so initially coming off of the ship, we did part ways, but we quickly found each other again. And initially he moved to Canada, but we realized it was not going to be possible for him to stay here and live here and work here. He went home, and after 6 months, and an incredible 6 months. I mean, it was the 6 months where I kind of really proved myself to my agent, and then he was sending me out for more things, and I was booking more work, and something was really missing for me. And for 6 months, I was oblivious to it. And one day it just hit me like, oh, this is why I'm not really feeling fulfilled. I think I need to go
yeah.
pursue this relationship. So yeah, so I moved there to be with him. And it was actually, in a way, it was a stepping away from dance for a period of
Yeah.
time, because that cultural adjustment and having to work to pay rent in a very expensive place in the world to live
Yeah.
meant I needed to step away for a while. But it also brought me back to it. So in the latter part of my time there, I sort of was able then to step back in, dip my toe in the water there.
Man, that must have been such a like stew of emotion where you've met this human, there's a connection, there's a separation, and then during that time away, there's so much professional success, maybe things that you were yearning for, but recognizing like there's a very large puzzle piece missing. And then to make that decision, which is so beautiful, and then be like, but now, that is so much to unpack. Like my heart aches a little bit because it's really getting me.
I think it's good that I gave myself time to come to that, because once I knew, I knew.
Right. Right.
So it took time for me to admit to myself, hey, this is because of a guy. But when you know, and it's we've been married now. So this is before marriage, but we've been married now for 26 years. So It was the right decision.
It all worked out. Great job, guys.
Yeah,
Snaps all around.
yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Oh my gosh. So then obviously, like we are in Canada now, so obviously you made your way back. And as I mentioned, I think how I met Tamara is that she is the owner, operator, magician of Shine Dance Festival, which is one of the most beautiful dance events I've ever been lucky enough to be a part of. And it's a competition. Like, don't get it twisted. It is a dance competition. But when I hear folks in wider communities talking about, dance competition and the reality, and in my brain, I just go, there is a place where that is not there. That is not what it is. And that's what you've created. And I would really like you, if you feel comfortable, I'm so curious as to how did the idea of Shine come to you, and what did that, like, that's a huge undertaking to be like, I think I should make a dance competition. So like, I would love for you to share what sparked that, what was ruminating in your mind that was the creative process that had to happen next.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. It wasn't a very long process. I had moved to Vancouver and I
Mm-hmm.
was teaching and going to competitions.
Right.
And the kind of experience that I was fortunate to have growing up. So in Edmonton in the 80s and early 90s, in the 80s,
Yeah.
all we had was one festival, Alberta Dance Festival. And it was really a place where studios came together and everybody was rooting for everybody, and we had such incredible modeling from the leaders, like the studio owners and the teachers. Like, they came together, we saw them connecting and supporting one another, and those friendships that they had. And so that's what we knew, and that's what we then did. I'd get to competition, and for me it was like, okay, where are all my friends from the other studios? I can't
Yeah.
wait to see them. And so having that incredible experience really showed me what it can look like. And then when I was here teaching, I just felt like that was missing. Every time I would take my students, I didn't feel like it was an extremely positive experience for them. It felt like maybe these events were really designed for like a very specific subset of dancers. There was a lot of focus on like what the awards were, what they were made of, how much money, who was first, second, or third, and that was it. And I just felt like, this should be a really valuable experience for every single person who's coming here. And it didn't feel that way. And so I really wanted to fill that gap and see if there was anybody out there who's looking for that, who, and I just, as a teacher who, was teaching like different ages, different levels, different disciplines, I couldn't imagine that there weren't other teachers in the same boat. Maybe you have like, less experienced group of dancers, or younger group of dancers, or a teenager who's started late. There should be something for them in this competitive experience for them to be inspired and to grow and to make connections and to have a positive experience. So that was missing. I wanted to fill that gap. And it just sort of came up in a conversation one day when I was away guest teaching with the studio owner. And so I just jumped in.
It's so, when I listen to people tell stories like that, you feel a little bit far away from it. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. Like, just jump in and like build that. But I think, and I hope, I imagine folks who are listening, like, you've done something like that in your own life. Like, I'm listening to you being like, that's crazy, I could never do that. And I'm like, hold tight a second though, because we've all done something like that. It's just, you just start it because you feel the need. And I think something that you said so lovely is that it should be a valuable experience for everyone. And I feel like that's so clear that is really what Shine, I don't even want to say attempts to do, because it as an attendee, I feel valued at Shine, regardless of like what type of dancer I have or what kind of kiddos I have dancing. It feels very valuable. Um, Can you tell us when Shine launched and what that first year felt like? Because that's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I think this needs to happen. It's another thing to then take action and do the thing.
Yeah. So the idea was born in 2005, with the first festivals happening in 2006. And or the first festival, I should say. It was 2 years. It was just one-off event, right? I think, I've been an entrepreneur for longer than I thought, but I think my first venture, I was 14 and I decided to put flyers, handwritten flyers, in the mailboxes of my neighborhood and do a little dance camp at my house in the summer. So it was there. I just didn't realize it. And then even before Shine, I had definitely, moved to Vancouver, started running my own classes independently. Like, I've never been afraid to sort of try and experiment. I am a risk averse person, so I have to do it in a very calculated way. I have to really plan everything. And I think that's what's really incredible about this business, like feeling like, oh, I've been in business for 20 years and I didn't know I was going to be a business person. I still feel weird calling myself a business person, but that is what I do. I run a business. And
Right.
you were talking about value. Running a business is all about creating value. So that's the starting point for everything. What are we offering and promising, and what is the value that we're providing? That's the root. So from the concept, it was like, okay, what's the value we're providing? And then all of the other pieces of how we implement it and the business systems fall into place from there.
Yeah. Again, I'm like, what I keep hearing, or like that resonates with me, is that the things that you do and the things that you create are very self-motivated from a place of, I know that this is what feels right for me, or this is what I believe. Like, because I resonate. I'm like, yes, as a business, we should be creating value. We should be adding value to people, and not just in terms of like lip service. It's like, you can say it, but then you have to follow through on the back end. It just feels so intrinsically self-motivated from yourself. How did you find that for yourself? Like, it feels very easy, or it seems like it's very easy, but I imagine there was a time when maybe you didn't feel so confident in yourself or those values or that integrity to be like, well, this is what I believe, and therefore I'm going to use this as the basis for the thing I'm going to create. When you look back, like, is there a moment where you can sort of pinpoint that mind shift where you knew you kind of came into yourself so that you could operate in this way?
I don't think it was a moment. I think it's something that over time, your values, the things that are important to you, the things that guide your decisions, the things that help you navigate the obstacles, they just become clearer and clearer. And so you have to listen to your inner voice. You inevitably, in any business, you're going to have moments where you have a difficult decision or a difficult conversation, and none of us is going to get every single one of them perfect. We make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes for sure. One of the things that I've learned about myself is that if I rush, I'm less likely to feel good about it at the end. So I started to recognize, for example, that before I run and have the conversation, I need to write it in an email, even if I'm not going to send the email. Like, I need to go through that mental process. I need to give myself the time, so that I can then have that conversation with a lot of clarity.
Right.
But I think so much of it really comes down to taking the time to get really, really clear.
Yeah.
Because then you know that you are aligned with what you feel, what you believe, what you what you have to live with at the end of the day as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have nobody, I don't know where I heard this, but like you really, at the end of the day, you have one person that you need to answer to at the very end of all of it, and that is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Holy smokes.
And I'll tell you, COVID was for me, that was the reality check. It was the moment of, okay, I need to do this in a way that aligns with my heart, which meant we're not doing live events, and I'm not going to try to create something or force something just to make this work and just to generate revenue. Because if something happens and that's because of my decision, I have to live with that. So I did not have any live events for a full season. And we did it online in a way that I'm really proud of. But that was for me, if it doesn't work, if people don't want this and I need to shut down my business and say goodbye, I can do it and feel really good about how it started, how it ended, and everything in between. And I was ready. I was prepared for that to happen. I was prepared for people not to want to do the virtual event and to have to say, okay, like it's time to close this chapter. So
that's wild
clarity
to me.
Clarity.
Yeah. It's so interesting because obviously in terms of the timeline, when I'm talking to people, COVID is always coming up because we're able to sort of reflect back a little bit on it now. And to have been in a place where you felt like, if this is the wrap up, I'm really proud of how it all went. And to hear you say that, one is like inspiring, and two is also heartbreaking, because obviously I'm like a huge fan. The time element, which I think was I hesitate to use the word gift, but like it was something we got from COVID, where there was just a forced slowing and a forced like space to think and then align, which I hope, which I mean, like I remember at the beginning just panic, and there was like that, and then it was like, oh, you can't fight against that so much. Interesting. The reason I like totally 100% said I want to know when Shine started is because this year Shine celebrated 20th year as an independent dance competition, and not just dance competition, but an event. And because you hold events, and the Shine world has expanded, which I also want to get into. So what does it feel like to have celebrated 20 years, like with everything that you've experienced through those 20 years of owning a dance competition?
Yeah. In a way it still doesn't feel real, or feels like, it's still not maybe totally landed for me. I would say that for me in business, like 10 years of Shine was really a turning point,
right?
That I can put my finger on, where for the first 10 years, I really felt like, it was a hustle. It was a hustle. Like it was a lot of energy and a lot of time commitment and just a lot of constant work to build it. And of course, being born in 2005, not a lot of dance competitions even had a website at that time, and so I built this business by picking up the phone and calling strangers and
truly a millennial's nightmare.
Just checking, like, have you received your registration package? Do you have any questions for us? Like, I mean, that's how I built this business. And so at the 10-year mark, I felt a really huge shift, because I was like, oh, like there is an established community. Like I have relationships, I have connections, I have built something. At 20 years, it's now been built for a long time. So it's more about, it's more thinking about what's the legacy, right? What is the whole long-term plan? Where do I want to go from here? And in truth, like I've never had a dream to try to expand and be the biggest. Like that's never been why I do it. Because really for me, it's about the relationships, and it was about, in a way, coming to a foreign place and not really knowing anybody and not being from here. It was a way of creating my new dance family. So because that's what it's about for me, that's still, the vision for me still is about being like the best, not the biggest, just really continuing to create the kind of community for other people who are looking for that. It's not for everybody. Shine is not for everybody, and that is perfectly fine. I just want to create that space for the people who are looking for that kind of experience.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think too, as Shine has continued and you have built that community, it has only solidified and strengthened, and not only in terms of like the dancers and the teachers and the choreographers who attend, but also the folks around you who are supporting you within the business. I think that has really, I hope that has really offered you a feeling of stability, and then that allows you to like do your thing. Because I know that now you've got some like really, I know because I deal with them all. So I know
Yeah.
that you have incredible people around you. It takes time to find the right people, but then once you find the right people, they're kind of yours. Do you, again, because you've been in business for so long and it seems like you've again figured these things out, I'm always curious to know, how does that work? How do you find those right quote unquote people, like those people who are really like on board with what you want to do? Do you have a way of finding those people or bringing those people into your orbit now that you've sort of found that? Was there something, maybe it's a gut feeling, or like, I don't know, maybe you have like an interview process, or maybe you like find out what their favorite TV show is and then it's like, are we going to vibe? What is that's always like a go-to for me. I'm like, what television show are you watching? Because how are we, I just need to know how to relate to you. Like, how do you
Yeah.
find those people?
It is a combination of things. I mean, luck is definitely a part of it because timing is a part of it, and you can't control that part of it for sure. Referrals, certainly having people who are from within the family who then bring other people into the family, like that's very, very helpful, because people who really have experienced the culture and who understand the culture and what is important in terms of our company values, then understand who's going to be a good fit. And certainly I am grateful to Ray Gibbon for bringing Maddie on board, because that's how she's, come to be connected with us. But I also think a big part of it is, I mean, for me, there are systems for everything, for hiring, for recruiting, for, but I think the most important piece is really the relationship with your people. And again, it comes down to value and values, right? The culture that you create, and never taking for granted that they're just going to stay with you. I don't ever feel that way, especially, we all have our personal life outside of our work. And so really trying to, know the person and them as a whole person is a really important part of that relationship. I think, as much as there are systems in business, there are people that are a really huge and important part of your business. And not to dwell on COVID, but one of the greatest challenges for me was that I had built an incredible team of people who, meant a lot to me, who I'd worked with for a very long time. And unfortunately, at that time, it had to dissolve, and I had to go back to being a one-man show for 1 year, and then have just very part-time assistants for 1 year until, we were in a place. And I now have to say, like, where I'm at in my life personally right now is going, okay, it's been rebuilt. We've got a foundation, and now I can start stepping back out of the business. But for 5 years, I've been, much more immersed in the business. I had the goal and the vision of stepping out a little bit more, and I had achieved that, and then I had to start from zero. So I'm really grateful to have a phenomenal team now, and to feel like I can start that process of backing up, not fully stepping out by any means, but just, it's a different perspective on the business when you're so inside of it. It really limits what you can see and do for it as a whole.
Yeah. When you're so in it, it's difficult to zoom out and sort of look at things objectively. Shout out to the Shine team, because every time I have to deal with you, they're like so amazing. And again, referrals, I am so grateful, because I feel like I can reach out to anybody that I've like met at Shine, and just being able to like say like, I know you from this, and they go, oh, it's like, it's a lovely shorthand, and that you've like actually created, I feel like, within the dance community. Folks who are listening, I hope you're picking up on the trend of like Tamara's overarching like whole essence, which is values, culture, and integrity. And Tamara also owns another business besides Shine Dance Festival, which is the Dance Leadership Institute, which again, caveat, I am a certified educator through that. But that's what I wanted to talk about because I really struggled with the concept of values, integrity, and alignment when I first, right when you started that business and started offering these courses for professional development for dance educators. And I was very hesitant to it. And I really didn't like it. Now it's my whole jam. And I shout you out frequently about it because it took time again after I did the initial course to be like, oh no, like actually this is the most important thing. And then when you work from that place. So can you tell the listeners about the Dance Leadership Institute? And again, maybe where that thought came from and why you felt the need to create a business like it?
Yeah, I think as a competition director, I've really built incredible relationships with so many dance educators and so many studio owners. And so I have a really unique vantage point in a way because I'm not in the studio. It's, as we were saying before, like that perspective, that Zoom. Now teaching and presenting on leadership, I think that's one of the most sort of valuable tools that we have is this ability to zoom out and zoom in, right? We have to pay attention to details, and I'm a very detail-oriented person, but it's really important to be able to zoom out and see the big picture, and we have to know when to adjust our lens, right? Yeah. On all sorts of things, and so having that unique vantage point and hearing about people's challenges. It kind of started to happen organically where people would sometimes come to me for advice, or we would just have conversations backstage at competition. And then COVID definitely amped it up. I had started presenting on leadership before, but COVID was when I was like, oh, okay, this is it. Let's take the tools that we have that we've been developing and learning and just do what we can to help others. Yeah. But it really started for me from that place of going like, okay, these are really common challenges among many dance educators or studios. If we boil it down, what's the challenge and how do we overcome it? And all of the things that I kept coming back to, I started to realize were skills in the domain of leadership. And for me, that idea, that word, that concept, leadership, it seemed very vague. It did not seem clear. It did not really speak to me. But it was kind of like the reverse process of going, oh, this is what that is. That boundaries, values, clarity around your mission or your vision. Oh, these are pillars of leadership. Yeah. And so, the challenge right now with the Dance Leadership Institute is that until you have that awareness of those things and their value, then that concept is very vague. So how do we develop that awareness? How do we expand that language around what those things are and help people recognize that those are the tools, right? Dance, we have a lot of opportunities for professional development when it comes to learning different syllabus and different trainings, but we don't have very much that is, either teaching business skills for studio owners or the other sort of soft skills that are super important when we are working with people. And so these are those skills, and they may be soft, but holy moly, are they impactful.
So impactful. And I think the difficulty is, and I think where like I sort of like got itchy about it was I was like, well, I know what my values are. Like I am clear, like I have integrity, and what you offer through the Dance Leadership Institute is like, okay, great. You know that for you, but if you need to have a discussion with a parent or if you need to commute, like how do we take it from, and this is, again, something that I'm like, oh, this is like the key to everything. knowing it here and knowing it here is very important for this one human, but putting it on paper, getting it out of your head or out of your heart so that it's like, this is what we stand by, I think is so vitally important. And then it becomes the system, like you were talking about, so that you don't have to worry if people move on. You have the system in your head, or you have the value in your head. And once you take it out and put it out there on paper, it's so much, I don't know, it's easier to access and it's easier to communicate to others.
Like if I was to use a bit of an analogy, when you first play a board game that is fairly intricate, right? Like the first time you're just kind of like muddling through. And then as the rules and the ways that you execute become clearer, you get better at playing the game. And so the goal is to get so clear. Like I said, it's a process, right? It doesn't happen overnight, but that clarity, the clearer you are, the easier it gets. And also it alleviates so much of the pressure, you know? And I think it's real that I think people in all industries, and definitely in the dance industry, are experiencing a lot of burnout, because teaching, any kind of teaching, is a job of a lot of giving. You're giving a lot of your energy, you're giving a lot of your spirit, you're giving a lot of your knowledge. It's giving. It can be very draining. And so part of leadership is boundary setting. Part of leadership is taking care of yourself. These are things that, a lot of us have a hard time doing. And so we've got to have a clear roadmap. We have to have clear, I don't like to use the word rules, but like clear guidelines, clarity around all of those things. It makes every aspect of our lives, both professional and personal, easier to navigate, less overwhelming. The stress, the anxiety, it's real, and we're all going to experience it. I mean, it's not that any of us is
we're not immune to it.
Is invincible. We are not immune to it. We're all going to experience it, but we certainly have the ability, from that clarity, from understanding what is important to us, to do a better job of just navigating our own lives with that clarity, and to find better harmony between work life.
Yeah, and
most of the time.
Most of the time when I want to. What I've really noticed, just in terms of like I guess I did it at the same time, but I had a handmade knitwear company, and it was just me, and I made stuff all the time. And I would have people ask me, oh, can you do this for me? Or, oh, can you make a, custom order? And being a people pleaser and also a human who I was like, well, I'd love to make money from doing this work for you. I kind of started saying yes to everything. And even as dance teachers, I think we do that as well, right? Like, kiddos asking for solos or, extra rehearsals or what have you. And I'll never forget, I had a custom order that came in, and she wanted something very specific. And I bought the yarn. And what I actually had to do was like cut out segments of the yarn because it wasn't the right color she wanted. Like I really went ham. And I like pieced this yarn together, and I made this scarf, and I sent her a photo. I was like, hey, I finished it. Like, you wanted a pink, purple, and blue, like variegated. I made it. And she's like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. And then just like pieced. And I was like, holy smokes. And my sister was like, you need guidelines. You need rules and regulations so that you don't get taken advantage of. And I found that once I created those for the business, even though it was just me, right? Like, and even as a, self-employed dance teacher, creating that like, sort of like piece of paper or what have you, my brain's like 100% broken today. Creating those policies gave me space. So I was like, oh, it's not me who's saying no. I'm like, these are the policies that I uphold, or like, these are the guidelines. And it made it less personal, and it made it easier to enforce when I was like, oh, these are the standards. These are the guidelines that we've set forward. And I think as a studio director and a dance teacher, like being able to, not that you want to pass the buck and not that you want to take away the blame, but in terms of keeping it professional, having this sort of, those policies become like a third party, right? And I found that incredibly helpful, because then it's not so personal. And like you say, you can balance that work-life balance. I still can like you as a human. And these are the expectations or the guidelines that have been set forth. I don't know. Does that feel?
Yeah. I think one thing to remember is that, you want to enjoy what you do. You want to enjoy the work that you do. You want to feel fulfilled. And we are lucky enough to work in an industry and in a job where that is totally available to us. So if that's not the case, if you are not getting joy from your work, then it's time to look at your policies, right? Your personal policies, and go like, is this aligned with my values? Is this, is this where I want to be? Or am I advocating for myself to bring that back into the mix? Because, one of the things we look at in our leadership certification for dance educators is, who you lead. And of course, when we think about leadership, we're mostly thinking and talking about when we're leading other people. But I think the piece that most people realize in our course is that they're not leading themselves. Right. We also need to lead ourselves. We need to lead our own lives. We need to have our own boundaries, and we need to learn to manage that better. And, okay, this is going back, but like many years ago, there was a fantastic workshop put on by the Dancer Transition Resource Center here in Vancouver that Andrea brought in a psychologist, like a sports psychologist, Madeline. I cannot remember her last name. And boy, what an eye opener. I was in my 20s at the time. And that was the first moment of truth for me where I was like, oh, the psychology of the dance space, especially in the time that I grew up, right, in the 80s. We are just trained to smile and nod and say yes. I did not benefit from a world where it was like, get curious, ask questions, explore, improvise. That was not part of my training and upbringing. And it's still baked into the psychology. Not everywhere. There's a lot of great change, not only happening, but that has been happening. I mean, I'm old enough to say that I can see how, we're making great strides, but this is still very much embedded in the psychology. And we, in order to lead ourselves as teachers, as dancers, as performers, as business owners dealing with parents, we need to have clarity. We need to recognize that we have the ability to make choices, to have the life that we want. It doesn't mean we don't make compromises. It doesn't mean that there aren't difficult decisions and difficult conversations. Like, those are all part of life for everybody, everywhere, no matter what. We're just lucky enough to work, again, in a job and in an industry that we love, that has so much meaning, and I think also contributes so much value and meaning to the world. So leadership.
That really got me. Well, first you said lead yourself, and then you started talking about Andrea, and I was like, you guys, I can't cry on every episode. It's just not okay. I think that maybe too, that is maybe where that itchiness came from, because I was like, well, I can lead kids in a classroom. Of course I can. But what it really was turning the lens on yourself to be like, yeah, but how are you applying that leadership to yourself? And then you realize you're like, I'm not.
Well, because we know, we are keenly aware of the kind of role models we are, especially as teachers in the studio, right? Whatever music we're listening to, that's what the kids are listening to. Whatever fashion we're wearing, that's what they're wearing. Like, we are huge influences. We have a major impact on the people around us. And it's not just on kids, and it's not just in the studio. We all have an influence on all of the people around us. So what is the impact? Was the influence that we want to have? And we need to lead by our own example. We need to lead by our own example in all the aspects of our life. It doesn't mean that we need to be perfect. None of us is perfect or will ever be perfect. And that is not the end goal. And I say this as a recovering perfectionist myself. I'm still, I am working hard on that every single day. But we need to be able to walk the talk.
That has really been my mantra. Like, I would say the past 18 months, I was like, oh yeah, there's no more, if you can't back it up with kindness and curiosity. Like, I'm always here to be like curious about things, but like, I'm like, that for me has really got to come together.
Yeah, that has been, I think, for me, the biggest lesson or like insight as a parent of almost 17 years now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
parenting has been hard because there's a lot of talk and not a lot of walk. And so to find other parents, at least this has been our experience. And again, because my husband and I both me from a different province with a very different culture, I think, than BC, and also growing up in a different time than we are living in now. And my husband growing up in a culture that's completely the opposite. And then me also having, quite a lot of experience with that, like finding other people who align in our values, especially in our parenting world, has been extraordinarily challenging. And one thing I have, really so much admiration and respect for the dance world is that I just, because of the business of working with children, there are a lot of common values because we see and experience the world through the lens of working with children, and that gives perspective on things that can be hard to see when you're only dealing with your children. But when you deal with a lot of children, you get a whole new perspective.
Right. Yeah. And I don't have the perspective of only dealing with my kids, but I don't have kids. So they're all my kids, but it's not the same relationship at all.
No,
So
not the same relationship.
I'm like, no, your kids, they just need more time to bake in the oven. And I'm like, I know you think that they're the most delicious cookie. They're not a cookie, they're a cake in this like scenario. And I'm very like, I use that all the time. I loved your analogy of the board game, playing the board game. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to use that. But I often will talk to kids, when they feel frustrated about, you can't dance on that team, or, you didn't get this role or what have you. And I'm like, babe, you're not a cookie. You're not done in 10 minutes. You're a souffle. And we got to be real. Like, that's like, I think souffle is like beyond cake, to be honest, because like you can't even jump, like don't even walk if we're making a souffle, and you need more time. Like, it's just recognizing that those kids need different things. And even as kindly or as nicely as I love kids and I love my kids, but it's like, they're not mine. And so there's that very different conversation piece where I am a little bit objective because I'm just like, and then when it's yours, it's harder. So like, I also props to like, dance teachers and studio owners who are also parents. And if their kids are also dancers, I'm just like, it's so much. I can't.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And again, this is where that Zoom lens comes in, right? It's like having the ability to just like, adjust the focus is just really, really helpful for me. Everybody's got their mantra, what they say, just pause, breathe, whatever, slow down. For me, it's just like zoom out.
Yeah.
Zoom out.
Yeah, me too. I'm always so quick to tell folks about you and about the Dance Leadership Institute, because I'm like, I don't want you to go through 20 years of teaching and then start to figure it out and then be like, oh, now I've, and then like you say, it is a process for sure. But the earlier we can like get into those things, like the more successful you'll be and feel, I think, at least for me.
I mean, a lot of it has to do with confidence, really. So much has to do with confidence. And sometimes, especially in a world where everything is so external, right? We're seeking this external validation for that confidence. And again, the pillars of leadership are about actually like tapping into what is you, what is inside of you. Because I think we don't get a lot of reminders in life, in this world, that the answers are mostly right in here, like they really are. And we're not used to looking in that way and trusting ourselves to know or find out or be curious or talk to people or, just navigate it on our own. But
until the dam breaks, which I would never wish that on anyone for something. And unfortunately, and I mean, maybe it doesn't even have to be like a big experience, but I find a lot of people, there's usually something, right? Where there's like a tide turns because you haven't been honest with yourself, or you haven't been listening to yourself and you have been sort of crowdsourcing, which is great. But I think you should always crowdsource and then like test it against yourself, because the idea of having to face an experience where you're forced to reckon with your values is not ideal.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, it's not. It's there are
Let's not
ways,
pretend
there
we
are
did.
less painful ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, too, like you say, it comes with confidence and it comes with time and it comes with clarity. And I think that's my favorite thing about getting older as a dance educator, is that I'm just like, I'm so gravy. The calm confidence that I have, where I'm just like, I'm not worried about it. But that took time. And like when I was 20, I was not that, like, at all. There was so much hustle. There was so much push, right? And again, like I saw in my adapt friends, and I was like, y'all just gotta chill. Just like let it unfold, man. I'm very the dude sometimes, like, when I get in those spaces where I'm just like, it's all good, man. Like, just chill. Which again, I often say to my students too, I'm like, oh, if I was being taught by me, like if 17-year-old me was being taught by this me, I was like, oh, I'd hate what I'm about to say. I would be so mad if I was like, I don't like what I'm about to say. Like, me as the student, I'm with you. Because to recognize that I'm like, that wasn't where I was. And I'm really loving like where I'm at now. And I think all the folks that I've had the opportunity to work with, including you, have like been like a puzzle piece, which is like so lovely. And I like collecting that, because it creates who you are, but it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't rush the process. And I guess I feel pretty fortunate to be the age that I am and to have really experienced most, like a very important part of my life before everything sped up. Yeah. Because the thing I feel like we all, myself included, very much, are battling is like the speed of life, the speed of decision making, the speed of growth, the speed, and so really I not only with decision making and those things, like trying to slow down, but also with business growth, just for me now, I'm in a moment of like, there's no rush. Yeah. There really isn't a rush, and it can take the time that it needs to take. And I feel lucky because my whole entire professional career path unfolded for me. I had targets, I had goals, and I was driven, and I pursued and I adventured, but I was never like hung up on one specific thing. And I never had at any point, like, this is the thing that I must achieve, or this is what I have to do with this business. Like it wasn't ever, let's say, so narrow. There was always an openness. And so really, like, I wanted to dance. So I went and pursued professional dancing, and then that led me to something else, which led me to teaching, which led me to start a festival, which led me to start another business focused on leadership. Each thing sort of led to the next, and I think that level of openness and willingness is necessary to allow things to unfold that way. And I'm so grateful that that's how it all happened. A lot of it for sure is luck, but we have to be open and allow for that.
Yeah, I think you make out such a good point, especially, I mean, I think this has always been the way of this world in terms of dance, is that you do just have to be open, but you also have to be driven and have sort of goals. But when, like you say, when you get hung up, if you get hung up on something, then again, it just really narrows your focus. And by sort of being open and curious to whatever might happen, it leads you, I can speak for myself, and I think, I assume you'll agree as well, but like, I felt successful. I've had opportunities that I didn't know I would have. And the things I wanted early in my career, which I had no business asking for or getting at that time, except that I wanted them, I am now experiencing. And so it's like, it's very nice to stay open. So like have a goal, be driven, but that openness, I think I have to agree. It offers you more longevity, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are times and places and scenarios where you do need to focus and hone in, whether it's on a specific discipline or a specific career path. Absolutely. There are spaces for those things as well. But I feel like with speed, it's a little harder to, again, keep that openness, or zoom the lens out a bit and remember the whole picture and the long game, right? The long trajectory. I know you touched on that earlier. And I think, again, with kids dance education, right? When you're 19, 20, 21, like you can't have that same kind of understanding of a long-term trajectory for a child, because your whole lifespan until now is just this short, right? So how can you really do that? But so a lot of it is time. It happens with time, and we just need to kind of accept.
Yeah. As you were talking about how, as we get older, it feels like time is speeding up, or like maybe we don't have enough time to do everything. I find, yes, I agree. And I'll challenge that a little bit to say that the more that I sit and operate from a space of alignment and clarity and values, I don't feel the rush. I don't feel the speed. I don't feel the anxiousness that can sometimes come with our community of like, order the costumes and register for the thing. And, and I'm just like, again, a little bit of the dude. Like, I'm just like, I know what I need to do for myself and my business and my kids. And I'm just not going to be and I'm recognizing how like privilegey that kind of sounds, but I want to recognize that I don't feel that that's where it's coming from, because I'm still working hard. I'm just falling back on what I believe and how I want to operate.
Yeah,
and
I think
that helps with feeling the speed of time.
Oh, I think so. I think it's the difference between feeling the pressure of the external validation, right? It's recognizing that your own internal validation matters and can be the gauge for your life.
Yeah. Okay. So you've talked about being a recovering people pleaser. And perfectionist.
Yeah.
I'm all of them. I'm people pleaser, conflict avoidant, perfectionist, procrastinator, just the list. This is a question I love asking folks, because I found as I work with dancers that there is a strong personality type that I continue to see. And I wonder if dance creates type A perfectionists, or does it attract type A perfectionists who also might be a little neurospicy, because we like dance gives what we want, or is it a blend of both? Like, I really think that this is a deep dive question that like we need to do some legitimate research.
I agree, because I love that question. I'm fascinated by it. I think, especially again, as in the culture, we are a lot more aware, and certainly in my own personal experience, I've learned a lot about neurodiversity in the last few years and how it relates to my family particularly. It's fascinating. And it's also one of those things is like, how do we find the sweet spot? Because just identifying with some kind of a diagnosis, or then that can have a lot of negative implications, as well as be very, very helpful. So how do we digest that information? What's the sweet spot of it being helpful to us, and then also not? Does dance attract? I mean, I think it definitely does. Dance and other similar things like competitive sports and do I think attract certain personalities, whereas other activities attract different types of personalities, or neuro types.
Spiciness, for sure.
And I'm not sure if I know the answer to whether it can create that. I think it can exacerbate that. Whether it creates that or not, I don't know. That's a good question.
You really just flipped. Does it just, exacerbate? Because I wonder if we put someone, I'm just like experimenting with like guinea pig children. Like if you put, someone who maybe doesn't have those perfectionist or type A tendencies, if you put them, I don't know.
I mean, I think if I think about a real life scenario, for sure, I've had students in my classes who are not that type at all. And I don't think dance made them that way.
Mm-hmm.
Are there kids who came in not like that came out the other way? I don't know.
Yeah.
And is it possible, like, how if they're in a very intensive training program, then I think everything influences us, right? So I don't know how clear you could even get doing the research.
No.
But it is fascinating. And definitely, I mean, studio owners, the percentage of studio owners that would fall into, let's say, that type A personality is huge. But I think that also is true across business, right?
Yeah.
Because to run a business requires a certain amount of drive and a certain amount of like to control things. And
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I have no idea. This is like, you aren't describing me at all. I can't relate to this.
Or myself.
Yeah, for sure, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's the thing I joke about the most of if I were to ever write a thesis, I think that would be just the most interesting thing to get into, of like, follow a group of dancers for 5 years and just to see like just to get the information. Again, no, and again, I don't think there is, I think it's a bit of a rhetorical question, which is why I like to ask it. And just I think also just to recognize that like, that is really a lot of what a lot of dance teachers might experience in terms of personality of the kids. And just that is me. And so then I'm just like highly attuned to when I see it like in the studio, and I'm just like, oh no, like, let's get a wrap on this. Let's, try to curtail some of the things that could be perceived as more negative, and then be like, oh, but also it's also like part of your special sauce that will make you like,
And it's interesting because now I'm thinking about how, all of those things existed when I was in the dance studio. I'm going to think back to when I was a teenager in the dance studio, but as a society, like dance teachers and as a society, we weren't really thinking about those things or like consciously aware. We didn't have a vocabulary. However, teaching is an exercise in presence. And, it's funny now when teachers in schools, let's say, have lots of opportunities to train and learn about how to, adapt in their classrooms. It's become so theoretical that piece that is presence is lost. When we were young, nobody had the knowledge, and yet people were understanding how to manage a classroom full of different personalities and neurologies.
Yeah.
We just did it in a more intuitive way. And sometimes I wonder if that was better.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to know all the things and what that diagnosis is or how it presents for different people is so different. I think that piece of coming back to presence, and again, I'm going to tie that back to leadership, but like, I'm just currently working on a new program for teens that we're doing. And I think that that's such an important thing to talk about is that piece of it that is just simply presence.
Yeah.
If we're so in here all the time, then we lose that connection. And as as a teacher in the class, if you go in and you're just trying to get through your class plan because you got to achieve all of these things, you lose that connection. And if you're connected, you can go into the class and the 5 minutes in, it changes and it becomes a completely different class. And it's the best class that you've had with your students all year.
Yeah. That presence piece, I think, is so important. Like you say, because you can have a plan but if you're not aware, I always joke about how like, I'll plan a turn day, but like the kids aren't on their legs or like, it's just not happening. To continue to push in that space instead of today's episode has been brought to you by the phrase zoom out. If you don't zoom out
on Zoom.
Yeah, right. If you don't zoom out and go, oh, this isn't working. we gotta like make an adjustment. But if you're not present, and like you say, if you're just trying to hit all these, goals or markers, and you're not like aware of what's happening in the class, it's not going to be, as successful as you want it to. Creating an honest and authentic connection with my students has garnered the most growth from those kids. So I will take the time to get into it with them at the beginning of class, or even in the middle if I say something ridiculous or something happens, because that connection builds trust, especially with like teenagers. And then they're just going to grow so much faster than just, this is my plan and I got to do it. And that's how we're going to get to the end.
Oh yeah. And I think, what every dance teacher really knows is that we're not just teaching dance. Dance is our medium. And yes, we are training dance skills, but it's so much more. It's so much more than that.
Yeah. I feel like I got to teach you how to be a person. I'm like, who wants to sign their 3-year-old up for how to be a small child in a room full of other kids? That's like really the kinder ballet. Like, I'm like that. I don't think that's going to sell it to a lot of folks, but you're right. That it's like, we always say it, like dance is life lessons, but it is both like specifically in things that you can see, and then things that are like, again, those soft, quote unquote, soft skills. But also those soft skills are what make dancers the best people for you to employ.
Yes, it is.
I am continuing this false lightning round of questions where they're just none of these answers are going to be fast, but they're rotating questions that I like to hear the answers to. One of them, which is the personalities in dance. So now I don't know, because I've had different people and I've had to adjust the questions sort of for like, if they're an educator, or if they're, but now I'm like, oh, Tamara falls in all of the areas. So I'm not too sure which ones to pick for you, but let's start with, what is your go-to? We all know dance teachers have a problem. What is your go-to coffee order?
I love this question. I'm a decaf Americano with cream.
Oh, okay. You guys, everybody make a mental note.
Decaf. I love coffee. I cannot express how much I love coffee. But about 13 years ago, I went decaf, and I've stayed decaf. And now I'm so sensitive to caffeine that I actually had an incident of caffeine poisoning last year. That was very scary.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay. Everybody in the Lower Mainland, we all got it. You guys, we all got to write that down. What is a song that will always make you smile, get you hype, get you up and dancing? Like, is there a song where like, if it plays, it can immediately change your mood?
I'm ruining the lightning round here, but I'm working on a new playlist for myself called All Time, which is my favorite songs of all time. So some of them are top of mind, but I'm going to go with I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany. That just takes me back to a time and place in my childhood that I was at a dance.
I've been quite nostalgic recently, and just sort of going back of like, because again, when you get to a certain age, you can be like, wouldn't it be fun to go back to high school? It would not. But there's certain things where you're like, ooh, like that, but that part of that is like fun.
I wish there were more dances for teens, like for my kids. There aren't enough dances for kids. And what an amazing social opportunity they are. Like studios, if you're looking for an extra revenue stream, can you hold dances for like the tweens and the teens in your area?
Yeah. I selfishly want to hold millennial dance parties on Friday night, like a club without a club.
Are Gen Xers welcome?
Yes, of course. I shouldn't just say millennial, but like if you used to go to the club if you have Pitbull on your playlist, if you're still thinking about Nelly, like come dance on Friday night from 6:30 to 8:30. We can all go to bed. I mean, I'll stay up till 11, but I know folks want to go to bed. Yeah, that'd be so fun. I think we're alone now. Okay, that's great. Oh, is there a piece of art that has impacted you or your work? Have you been influenced? Like if you saw a painting and you were like, I want to create a piece about that, or is there a piece of art or an artist that you are really drawn to that makes you feel creative?
So I really love visual art and art history. I kind of feel like the two things that I would love to study and nerd out on are music history and art history. I wouldn't say that I've been directly inspired to create something based on a piece of art. However, and if I had to choose an artist, for me, I think it would be Van Gogh. I have just really, for a lot of reasons, I'm really connected to Amsterdam as a city. I've had a lot of like unique personal experiences in that city. The Van Gogh Museum is the favorite museum of all the ones I've ever been to on Earth.
It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I love about art and like art history, if we're talking visual art, but all art is like learning what's behind the art, right? It's the story, it's the people, it's the person, it's the stories, right? Just like dance is storytelling, all of art is storytelling. It's connecting you to different perspectives and worlds and ways of seeing the world. So
Van Gogh.
And for a specific piece, the almond blossoms is the piece of art that I'm most connected to. For my second baby shower, in fact, Emily, who was the very first assistant to me at Shine. So I had two Emilys in a row. So this is the original Emily. She held my baby, OG Emily. And both Emilys are so special to me. So OG Emily had a baby shower for me for my second, and it was a painting experience where it was 4 canvases that all came together, and that was the piece of art that we all painted together.
Oh my gosh,
it was pretty special, and it's hanging on my wall.
I love that. I like the skeleton smoking the cigarette. That is my very favorite Van Gogh. I think because it's so unexpected, and I knew it existed before I went to the museum, and then I saw it in real life, and I was just like, dang, that's the coolest. I mean, I love all the pieces, but I was just like, I'm just into this weirdness. Van Gogh. That's so, oh, I love. Okay. I look forward to seeing an almond blossom dance at some point. It's going to happen. What is, I use the term ugly, but what I mean is just, what is maybe a not so positive trait or an ugly, something that you feel like is ugly about yourself or about your personality that came to the surface or that you recognized because of dance?
Because of dance,
or like through dance, you recognized like, oh, I could easily, I could easily veer in this direction. Like I can be quite jealous, and I recognize that I am incredibly competitive. So like
competitive, that would be the first thing. Definitely. Like I am super competitive. It is what it is. I accept that about myself.
I like that. We've had a handful of people who are like, I'm competitive. Yes.
Yeah. But I don't see it as ugly. It is a part of who I am, and I have to obviously be aware of it and moderate it. But I don't necessarily see it as ugly.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by ugly. Like just like less than positive, or things that could be construed as negative, I suppose. Because I think you're right. I think being competitive, there's not a problem with that. But it
can be.
It can be. Yeah.
If you don't moderate the things that if you don't have an awareness of them.
Yeah. What is the best lesson that you've learned from dance?
So many. Not everything is for you.
Say it again louder for the kids in the back.
Not everything is for you.
Yeah.
Even if you really want it, even if that's what your heart is set on, not everything is for you.
Yeah. And it's okay.
Yeah. Because there are other things that are, and maybe you just don't see them or know them yet.
Sorry, I just got to let that live in my chest for a hot second. And they might be for you later. Like it's just not, I really recognize that in this industry. Sometimes it's like, it's just not for you yet or at this time because it's coming later. I think.
Yeah. Or there's something else really special that is for you.
100%.
That you want to be available for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, see, this is why like Tamara just gives me shivers because she's very brilliant and honest and wise. And I am just, it's so great. Last thing, if you could give one, well, and you can maybe decide just based on your experience who you want this advice to be for, because some dance teachers want it to be for kiddos or parents. But like if there's one piece of advice that you would like to share that you feel is like, take this one nugget away after listening to this, what would it be?
I don't know. I think it's different for each person. I think what you take away when you listen, I mean, I'm a huge podcast fan. But I think, every time we listen to something, we take away something different. And every person we listen to, if you listen, we all take something different. So I don't know if there is one thing. I think we've talked about so many things.
Honestly, like every time I talk to Tamara, I'm like, oh, there's like, and I'm like, there's another piece of wisdom or like, there's another nugget just to like tuck in my pocket. Yeah. If I can just like pump up your tires, but in a very like honest and authentic way, I think just how you walk through the world. And like you say, walking the talk and how clear you've become on who you are, what you offer, how you want to offer it, how valuable you are to people, and how honest and kind you are is just like a testament to like everything that you've done and what you continue to do. So like, if you're not a follower of like Tamara's work, either through Shine or the Dance Leadership Institute, I would I highly, if you resonated with what we chatted about today, this is so for you. Tamara, can you tell us where people can find you and follow you? Because they're all going to be obsessed after this. Sure.
So Facebook and Instagram, that is the two places that both of my organizations live, at Shine Dance Festival and at the Dance Leadership Institute. That is where you can find us on social media, and .com for both of those for the websites. Yeah.
We will put those in the show notes so that you can follow those things. If you are, honestly, if you're a dance educator from anywhere, I will shamelessly promote the Dance Leadership Institute as an incredible resource for dance educators. If you're interested in learning more about leadership, I know that you have a program for that, as well as adjudication certification. And no, you don't need to be certified to be an adjudicator, but as a human who came in with a little too much confidence to that first level 1 training, I will say you will walk away with incredible practical practice and resources, and you will feel so much more confident after taking that adjudication training. I can't say enough about it. I talk about it all the time. I'll have to have you back because honestly, like I could talk to you forever about all the things. And I just want to thank you so much for your time because you are a very busy woman. And I feel so blessed to know you and I see you as a mentor and someone that I can always look up to and I can always reach out to. And I'm so grateful for you and for taking this time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much for all of your kind words. Thank you for creating this platform for these important conversations, and just perspective, right? Like connecting people. That's what it's all about.
Yes, it is. Awesome. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Dancing Through It. We will see you next week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Dancing Through It. Connect with the Dancing Through It community over on Instagram and follow me at Leslie Cooney. I am very grateful because this being a talking head, I'm down for being a talking. From here up is pretty great. Like I like a lot of this. This is all good, really. And then let's not talk about the rest.